Welcome to module number 13 of the Intermediate English-Spanish Translation class. We are now at upper level or beginning the upper level. And we, of course, expect your work to be upper level also. And today we're going to be talking about a very important type of a verb, which is called the transitive versus the intransitive verbs and how to identify them in Spanish. But before that, we are finishing the topic of the Logos incarnate. Now, we began 2 modules ago with the Logos incarnate, the grammar. Then last time we talked about the glory. And today we are finishing with a climax, and that is the grace. But before that, let's look at today's life principle. Oh, John Steinbeck, a good old American writer. Look what he said. Beautiful. What good is the warmth of summer without the cold of winter to give it sweetness? Oh yeah. Nothing more satisfying than a warm afternoon in the summer. Not steaming hot, I'm talking warm. However, we will not really appreciate it unless we go through the cold winter first. That's what he's talking about. John Steinbeck, one of my favorite American writers. Today's saying, it is good fishing in troubled waters. So you're getting the idea of how we're leading into the topic? In other words, we're looking at the positive of everything. We looked at the positive of a cold winter, and now troubled waters. This is an old proverb. It is good fishing in troubled waters. And you probably know the one in Spanish. A río revuelto, ganancia de pescadores. Oh, sí. Así que, ¿se revuelve tu vida? Hay algo positivo ahí. No que estamos súper felices en el medio de el río revuelto. Oh, pero si ahí buscamos qué podemos aprender y ganar de eso. Today's expression, object to, objetar. Objetar. I object to whatever. Objetar. Oponerse a. Oponerse a algo. Esta A es tan importante en español. Aparece, aparece y reaparece. Y ahí se las marqué en la tarea de traducción número 6. Tan importante. Otra cosa importante de las traducciones es que no se olvide de hacerlas con las menos palabras necesarias. Keep in mind that a good translator is a writer who is concise. So if there's a word that is 4 letters long, but you could substitute that for a word that is 1 letter only. So you rather choose the 1 letter one, as long as you don't change the meaning. Okay? Helen objects to the plan for a new road, or she objects to the plan for a new road. Helen objeta el plan de la nueva carretera, o sea que ella está opuesta a eso. She objects. Like when a lawyer says, "Objection, Your Honor," in the middle of a trial. I object to whatever the other lawyer said. All right. And finally, today's phrase, home of, home to, as in the headquarters of something. Burger King, home of the Whopper, right? That's what I'm talking about. En español, la casa de para home of, o la sede de, like the headquarters, la sede. And now this is the house of the pancakes, right? That's a slogan, I guess, from IHOP, International House of the Pancakes. Esta es la casa de los panqueques. That's how you say it in Spanish. In Mexico, they just say hot cake. En España dicen tortita. Mucha gente dice pancakes. Porque en español en verdad no tenemos una palabra para pancakes, sino que es un calco del inglés. Excuse me. The American Airlines Arena is home to the Miami Heat. If you know Miami, right in downtown, you have the big arena. It's just the equivalent here in Greenville of what used to be the Bilo Center, now is the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. Okay? The American Airlines Arena. It's a coliseum, but they like to call it arena because back in the old days in Rome, the Colosseum was full of sand, arena. And you know why it was full of sand? To sweep out the blood of the people that were killed during fights or that were attacked by the lions. And they would just sweep away the blood with sand. So that center in the middle of the Colosseum began to be called arena. And in English, they borrowed that from Latin, which is arena, just like Spanish. But that one is called the American Airlines Arena, downtown Miami, which is the home to the Miami Heat, which is what? A basketball team. El Coliseo, you see, in Spanish, we say Coliseo. El Coliseo American Airlines es la sede de los Miami Heat. Any question? Great, great, super. All right. Again, I just already talked about translation homework number 6 before we began to record the class. And I was giving you some pointers. The reason I am not doing that again, recorded, is that one of your classmates has not turned in the homework because he just had surgery and he's in the hospital. So we are giving him extra time to turn it in. All right? But if you have any specific questions, please email them to me. I have already emailed you the graded homework number 6. And then tonight, I will be sending you homework number 7, which is due by midnight this coming Saturday. All right? Logos incarnate the grace. Again, we already saw the grammar, the glory, and now the grace. I'm calling this the climax. It's not my original, the fact that I'm calling it the climax. Great theologians have called it the climax. Well, maybe not, they may have not used the word climax, but it is just the summit of the entire revelation of God. Can you imagine? You know, for centuries, the prophets, they were speaking about this great day. And finally, the day came when God, who is holy, who is almighty, took the form of a man and lived among us. That's the climax of the entire message. Why did he do it? Because of his grace, to show forth his grace. So let's take a closer look at this. Here we are. In the beginning was the Word, and I know we used to before, but this is the third and the last time we're looking at the Logos incarnate. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then verse 14, which is what I call the climax of the whole story of eternity when it comes to salvation, it is the following. Again, ese es el punto culminante. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we saw his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Y aquel verbo fue hecho carne y habitó entre nosotros. Y vimos su gloria, gloria como del unigénito Hijo del Padre, lleno de gracia y verdad. So that brings us to today's topic, logos, or the verb, the grace. It is the most explosive of God's revelation, the fact that the Logos became flesh. God's fullness cannot be detached from the Logos. Now, this is important. Who possesses the grace? And who is that? The person of Jesus. So, the fullness of God cannot be separated from Jesus, who is the grace. Now, that word grace, what does that mean? Now, if you did the reading, you know that in Latin is the word gracia, just like Spanish. And it has to do with a gift. It has to do with thankfulness. That's why we say gracias. Think about it. So the word for grace in Spanish is gracia, and the word for thank you is gracias. Comes from the same root in Latin. And then when we look at the word in Greek, which is charis, where we get the word charismatic, charity, is an important gift, implying, and both implicitly and expressively, that it is completely free. However, it is also a legal statement that in order to receive that free gift, you don't have to work for it, but you have to accept it. Like if somebody leaves you an inheritance, somebody writes in his or her will that you inherited $1 million or a house or a car. It is not enough that it is written down. You will need to legally accept it so it can become yours. Now, you don't pay a penny for it, but as a legal statement, it is bestowed upon you upon acceptance. That's very important, because if you don't accept it, it will never become yours. Again, you don't work for it, but you must accept it. So we're talking about God's grace is God's gift to man. And here is what I'm talking about. The fact that it is a legal bequest. It is a bequest in intent, given voluntarily and without expectation of you doing anything to receive it. However, in order to be awarded, you must accept it because you are the beneficiary. But if you don't accept it, it will never become yours. I mean, that's the way it is in law, and that's the way it is with God's grace and his gift of salvation to man. So how do you accept it? Well, you realize that you need it, first of all. You realize that you are a sinner in the eyes of a holy God, and there's nothing you can do to pay and assuage his wrath. But you also realize that Jesus paid it. He paid it all. And then you accept that bequest by saying, I do accept it. Saying it to him, not to me. God is the judge that you will need to tell in your own words, in your own human words. You accept it. All right. So no excuse. You know that the gift is offered to you because it was paid with a big payment. The shedding of Jesus' precious blood, innocent blood on Calvary. But it did not stop there. It was reassured by the fact that he resurrected. And this week, we are celebrating once again that wonderful time in history. We call it Easter, but it is what we are celebrating. And what a great time to accept it if you have not done that yet. Any questions or comments? And if you do have any questions later, or maybe you don't want to ask me here in front of everyone, email me and I will be happy to even explain it further. All right? Great. Having said that, let's begin with grammar. Oh, yeah. A very important topic. Now, this is the time to ask questions because you need to be able to distinguish between direct and indirect objects and transitive and intransitive verbs. Because when you master them, translation will be much, much clearer in the way that you will write it. Well, let's see. Let's see. Now, I already brought this up the other day. I'm bringing it again because I want you to get a good grasp of it. Before we get into those verbs, let's look at these two verbs, jugar y practicar. Because in Spanish, they are almost the same, but not quite. ¿Ok? Y lo que dijimos fue lo siguiente. Uno juega al fútbol, uno juega a un deporte. Juego al ajedrez, juego a las escondidas, es un juego. Pero es importante que uno juega a algo. Así que es una expresión fija con el artículo al o a la. Bien importante. Algunos de ustedes todavía están teniendo problemas con artículos. En la traducción número 6, por favor. En español usamos artículos. Eh, eh, if you say in English, swimming is good for you, in Spanish you must begin with an artículo. In Spanish you cannot begin nadar o natación es buena para la salud. Uno dice la natación, no solamente natación. Ahora, si lo cambias en verbo, está bien. Nadar es bueno para la salud. Pero en sustantivo, natación, hay que decir la natación es buena para la salud. En español somos bien, bien estrictos en cuanto a los artículos. Ahora, cuando practicamos, no hace falta el artículo. Con el verbo practicar y luego el deporte, no se usa el artículo. Practico karate, practico boxeo. A menos que se le agregue información que particulariza el tipo de deporte, o sea, que explica más sobre el tipo de deporte. Por ejemplo, practico el hablando del voleibol, practico el vóley que me enseñó mi padre. Porque no está bien. Practico vóley que me enseñó mi padre, no. Es específico. Por eso es que es particular. Practico el fútbol americano. Está especificando qué tipo de fútbol. No es el soccer, no es el balompié, es el fútbol americano. Yo prefiero la palabra en español balompié. Fútbol en sí es un calco, pero está aceptada siempre y cuando la escribas como está ahí y con acento. Pero podría yo decir, practico balompié y ya no hay que poner el artículo. Practico balompié. Sin embargo, en casi todo Hispanoamérica la gente usa la palabra fútbol. ¿Eh? En el Caribe usamos balompié, tal vez porque no lo jugamos tanto como lo juega el resto de Hispanoamérica. All right. So here it is. Keep it in mind, all right? Now let's get to business. Complementos verbales. Y vamos a estar hablando del complemento directo y del complemento indirecto. ¿Cuál es el directo? El que usa verbos que son para un complemento directo. Los verbos transitivos. ¿Y cuál es el complemento indirecto? El que usa verbos intransitivos. Vamos a ver. Aquí está. Vamos a comenzar con el complemento directo. El complemento directo recibe la acción del verbo. Aquí está. Te debo $5. ¿Cuál es el verbo? Deber. ¿Cuál es la acción del verbo? $5. A mí me gusta hacer una pregunta. ¿Te debo qué? ¿Te debo qué? Y la respuesta es el complemento directo. ¿Te debo qué? Te debo $5. ¿Ah? Te debo un abrazo. Te debo una comida. ¿Ah? Te voy a llevar a comer. Te debo una comida. Así que ese es el complemento directo. Contesta la pregunta ¿qué y quién? Como vamos a ver en un momentito aquí abajo con la abuela. El complemento directo no siempre va precedido de una preposición. Por ejemplo, arriba no tiene preposición. Te debo $5, no hay preposición. Ahora, sí lleva una preposición si se refiere a una persona. Porque en español usamos el the personal a, en cuyo caso la preposición sería a, que viene antes del complemento directo. Visité a mi abuela. Así que en este caso contesta la pregunta ¿a quién? ¿Visité a quién? A mi abuela. Complemento directo responde la pregunta ¿qué o a quién? Nunca vas a perder el punto si te acuerdas que el complemento directo contesta la pregunta ¿qué o a quién? Muy bien. ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? Porque vamos a entrar al indirecto. Déjeme decirle que estos verbos son verbos transitivos. ¿Por qué? Porque llevan un complemento directo. Ya les voy a dar ejemplos de verbos intransitivos. Vamos a mirar el indirecto. El complemento indirecto indica que el destinatario de la acción del verbo, o sea, la acción del verbo la recibe un destinatario. Eh, Nos dieron un premio, o podríamos decir, un premio nos dieron. No se oye bien, pero nos ayuda a poder descubrirlo. Pero yo prefiero otra manera. El que contesta la pregunta ¿a quién o para quién? Nos dieron un premio. ¿A quién? A nos, a nosotros. Así que nosotros o nos es el complemento indirecto. ¿Nos dieron qué? Un premio. Así que un premio es el complemento directo. Pero ¿a quién o para quién? Para nosotros fue el premio. Complemento indirecto. El
Profe,
complemento indirecto siempre lleva una preposición antepuesta. Normalmente suele ser a o para. Yo, para no confundirme con el directo, eh, utilizo para en la pregunta. ¿Para quién fue el premio? Para nosotros. El complemento indirecto. Esto es importante. Cuando se antepone al verbo, o sea, cuando viene antes el verbo, se duplica. ¿Oyeron? Esto es importante de español. El complemento indirecto se duplica mediante el pronombre átono le o les. Vamos a verlo. A Juan le regalaron un coche. ¿Le regalaron qué? Un coche. Ese es el directo. ¿Pero para quién? Para Juan. Pero en español, cuando viene antes el verbo, se duplica. Así que tanto Juan como le son complemento, es el mismo complemento indirecto, es que está duplicado. Helo aquí. El mismo, pero duplicado. Porque no podemos decir a Juan regalaron un coche. No, a Juan le regalaron un coche. Ese le se refiere a Juan, al mismo complemento indirecto. Muy bien. Ok. Si hay preguntas, por favor, sin pena la hace. ¿Sabe por qué? Porque le voy a dar una tarea extra credit para que pueda mejorar su nota y la tarea tiene que ver haciendo lo que estoy haciendo ahora, escribiendo debajo si es CD o si es CI. ¿Ok? Es opcional la tarea, pero si quiere mejorar la nota, mire, yo la tomaría. No es difícil. Si entiende lo que le estoy diciendo aquí. Oh, se me pasó uno de... Aquí está. No sé, está medio touchy, touchy. Vamos a ver si puede. Aquí llegó. Verbos transitivos e intransitivos. Bueno, ¿cuáles son los transitivos? Los que llevan objeto directo. Precisan de un sujeto que necesita pasar a otro objeto. Manolo hizo la tortilla. ¿Hizo qué? La tortilla. Y aquí hay ejemplos de verbos transitivos. Pedir prestado, traer, hacer, como él hizo la tortilla, pagar, escribir, prometer, tener. Así que es bastante claro. Ahora, para contrastar, miramos los intransitivos. Los verbos intransitivos no van acompañados de un objeto directo. Por ejemplo, sonrió, sonreír, llorar, correr, dormir, hablar, volar, saltar. Estos son verbos intransitivos. No llevan objeto o complemento directo. Carlos durmió toda la noche. Ahí no hay nada. No hay un complemento directo. El hecho de dormir no tiene, no recibe no hay nada que recibe la acción de dormir después del sujeto. Carlos durmió toda la noche. Carlos lloró toda la noche. Carlos sonrió toda la noche. Corrió toda la noche. Habló toda la noche. Voló. Bueno, el avión voló toda la noche. Saltó toda la noche. Así que aquí está. Pregunta. ¿Eh? Y entonces aquí le estoy dando eh, un cartel que encontré en el internet bastante explicativo, que nos da el contraste entre los verbos transitivos e intransitivos desde otro ángulo. El transitivo exige la presencia dentro de una oración de dos o más complementos. Los catalogamos como argumentos en gramática. Sin los complementos, la oración no tiene sentido. ¿Eh? Eh, Carlos eh, se comió una hamburguesa. ¿Se comió qué? Una hamburguesa. Los intransitivos no necesitan de la presencia de argumentos, como Carlos lloró toda la noche. Lo podemos entender sin que haya un argumento. En la propia forma verbal encuentras todo lo necesario para que uno lo entienda. Decirlo finamente sería todas las características semánticas necesarias. O sea, lo que necesitas para que tenga sentido. Bien. El atleta corrió mucho, nadó mucho, etcétera. Ahora vamos a repasar algo que vimos al final de el curso de introducción, que tiene que ver con los artículos, con los complementos directos y con los complementos indirectos. Para recalcar lo que aprendimos, ya que es básicamente lo que estamos hablando hoy. When referring to a part of the body in Spanish, it is common to use an indirect pronoun. And again, the definite article instead of the possessive. Wash your hands, you know what it is. Lávate o lávese las manos. No tus manos, sino las manos, el artículo definido. Raise your hand, levanta la mano. Y aquí mire este, does your leg hurt? Ahí está, te duele la pierna o le duele la pierna. Así que aquí está, el le sería el complemento indirecto. Le duele la pierna. El le implica que es a la persona a quien le estamos hablando. Vamos a suponer un paciente. ¿Eh? Remember, direct objects are any type of objects that receive the action of the verb. And they answer the questions what or who. Indirect objects are always people or other living being to whom or for whom the action is being performed. So John gave a gift to Mary. John gave what? A gift. So gift is the direct object. To whom? To Mary. So Mary is the indirect object. All right? Now, typically in good Spanish, you will put the indirect object before the direct object. In Spanish, we want the indirect object to be closer to the verb. So we typically say, John gave to Mary a gift in that order. That's something that ATA will be looking for when you do your translation exam, your certification exam. Así que decimos en español, John le dio a María un regalo. En vez de John le dio un regalo a María. Es algo bien sutil, pero que ellos van a estar mirando a ver si usted lo traduce de esa manera, poniendo el indirecto antes que el directo. Ya fue una estrategia que aprendimos, ¿verdad? No siempre es así, pero el día del examen you want to show off, if you will. Let them know that you know it. All right? Now, the indirect object is used much more in Spanish than in English. People are often doing things for others, and this often calls for the use of le or te, which is the indirect object. Every time you say it, you know that's the indirect object. I would like to help you. I will buy her a gift. Me gustaría ayudarle o me gustaría ayudarte. Lo unimos al verbo, pero ahí está, el le o el te. Voy a comprarle un regalo. Ahí está. Ese sería el complemento indirecto. Now, English-speaking people are often confused by the choices available for the direct object in Spanish. Now, you shouldn't have any problems because you speak Spanish. I will watch you while you run. Voy a mirarte mientras corres. Ese te viene de qué? De you. ¿Eh? Voy a mirarte mientras corres. No escribas voy a mirarte mientras tú corres. No. Eso sería redundante. Voy a mirarte mientras corres. ¿Eh? Les conté que el otro día mi sobrinita me dijo, tío, ¿me miras cuando voy a jugar en el patio? Porque ella tiene miedo de que se va a aparecer una serpiente. Y es que hace 2 años se apareció una serpiente. Pero ya hemos puesto un veneno y ya más nunca se han acercado. Pero todavía ella se acuerda. Tío, no voy a menos que me mires, ¿ok? All right. Así que yo digo, yo voy a mirarte mientras juegas. Te is always correct when speaking informally, of course, as as my little niece. I'm going to give you a snack. Te voy a dar un bocadillo. Otras palabras para snack sería que eh, una merienda, ¿verdad? Ah, es algo que le encantan a todos, pero especialmente a los niños. Te voy a dar un bocadillo, te voy a dar un postre. Right. Entonces, el te ya aprendimos que es el complemento indirecto, igual que el le. When speaking formally, of course, for males you use lo, and for females la. But then if you want to use both genders together, you can use le. May God bless you, sir. That tells you is a man. So you will say lo. May God bless you, ma'am. That's a lady. So you will use la. And then may God bless you, both men and women. Or you're not specifying. So you use le. If it is singular. Que Dios lo bendiga, señor. Que Dios la bendiga, señora. O que Dios le bendiga en forma general. Y se oye bien respetuoso. Por supuesto, a un niñito lo cambias por te. Que Dios te bendiga. La semana pasada estuve enseñando en una academia. A mí me encanta enseñarle a adolescentes. Y una de las cosas que yo siempre hago con adolescentes es los trato de usted. Y a ellos les encanta cuando hablo con ellos en español y en inglés también. Levanta la mano uno y yo le digo, yes, sir. What is your question? Una señorita, yes, ma'am. Y les gusta. ¿Verdad? Que los estamos tratando ya como, wow, ya no soy un niñito. Por supuesto, con ese trato, yo les digo, se espera que también actúen como que ya son grandecitos, ya no son niñitos. Pero era un grupo de jóvenes bien respetuoso, me encanta. Después del almuerzo, los varones limpian el baño de la escuela y las señoritas limpian el baño de las señoritas. Y yo nunca había visto un baño tan limpio. Una cosa increíble. Qué bien están preparando a esos jóvenes. Qué bien. Now, there are important exceptions to this rule. For example, the verb pegar, which it means to hit, requires the indirect object, like this. Did it hit you? ¿Le pegó? ¿Te pegó? ¿Te golpeó? ¿Qué? Vamos a suponer una bola, ¿verdad? Estaba en el parque y la bola, me acuerdo una vez yo era maestro de educación física y la bola me golpeó la cabeza y caí inconsciente. Imagínese. Los estudiantes me cargaron. Nunca me olvido. Yo estaba sangrando también. Fue tremendo bolazo. Una bola de baseball. Así que usamos el le o el te porque es el complemento indirecto. Muy bien. Estoy tratando de cambiar. Al fin me dio la oportunidad de cambiar. All right. Vamos a ver. Ok. Some verbs require, y yo tengo aquí una barrita que no me deja ver lo que estoy leyendo. Estoy tratando, ya la pude mover. Muy bien. Some verbs require that the subject and the object are inverted. You know that. When translating between English and Spanish, that is, the English subject corresponds to the Spanish object, while the English object corresponds to the Spanish subject. The translation student is likely to encounter this usage when doing what we're going to see now, when translating the verb to like. Again, the subject and the object are inverted. So in English, you have it. She likes me. So she is the subject, and then me is the object. So in Spanish, you switch that. The me now becomes the subject. It's yo. Yo, and then le refers to her, to she. Le will be the object. In this case, the indirect object. You see how it is? So she likes me. In Spanish, me is the object. Yo le gusto. All right? I
Señor,
like her. So I is the subject. Her is the object. But in Spanish now, the object becomes the subject. Ella. And then me is now the object. See? So you invert. Ella me gusta.
Señor,
Yes.
una pregunta. Um,
Adelante, Jim.
she likes me. It is her who is doing the liking, correct?
She likes me. Yes, she's doing the like. No, no, in English.
Yes.
She likes me. She's the one doing the liking. That's right.
So this is confusing me because I may have the wrong conjugation of gustar. Because this is gusto. My first assumption is that's me because it's gusto,
Gusto.
not
Gusto.
not not gusta, but gusto. Yo le gusto. My first response when I see that is I like her because gusto.
No,
That that
just learn that in Spanish you invert. Okay? So yo le gusto
uh,
is actually saying I am liked by her, which is the same
ah
as she
ah
likes me.
I think I see it. Yeah, I am liked. I'm reassociating the verb with me, so therefore would be a verb, first person singular indicative to me. Es porque es gustó y no gusta.
Yeah,
Yo le
gusto,
gusto.
no gusto, gusto, gusto.
Yo le gusto.
Yo le gusto.
Okay, okay.
And then keep in mind that the good news is that this is just for the verb to like. So
Muchas gracias.
so um
Okay, thank you.
otherwise you could get into embarrassing situations like I did when I was learning English. See, um when I meant to say I like her, I ended up saying she likes me, which was not what I wanted to say because I did not know this rule. So, but again, now we all know the rule. When it comes to the verb to like, you invert the subject and the object.
Gracias, señor.
De nada. Very good. It doesn't have to be a person. Coffee. I like coffee. Okay. Um, so in this case, since we are not dealing with an individual, with a person, we're just talking about coffee. I becomes an object. I is in the nominative. I don't know if you're familiar with that word nominative. Nominative is when you are referring to the subject. And in this case, I is in the nominative case. Well, we're going to switch it to the objective case, which is me. Me. So, me gusta el café. All right? Me gusta mucho la comida. Me gusta la comida mexicana. Me gusta la comida italiana, and so forth. Now, this particular construction is a stumbling block to fluency for those that don't know Spanish well, and even advanced students sometimes have to think for a moment in order to conjugate the verb correctly and choose the right object pronoun. Now, notice that the English subject corresponds to the Spanish indirect object in all of these cases. That's what we have been saying. Okay? Now, here we have a couple more. So again, we're dealing with like and we're dealing with feelings. Keep that in mind, feelings. I feel happy. Well, happy is a feeling. They lack courage. Courage is a feeling. I got tired. So again, we're talking about a feeling. Me, you see how you invert the nominative and then you turn it into the objective? Me siento feliz. They lack courage. They is nominative and you change it to the objective, which in this case is indirect object. Les falta coraje. I got tired. Me siento cansado. Inverting the nominative, and in Spanish, you make it into the objective case, the object. All right. So these are good ones to take a good look at. And if needed, memorize them. All right. But again, they all deal with feelings. Keep that in mind. They're dealing with the physiology of the body. Did you get COVID? You're low in iron. I like her a lot. ¿Le dio COVID again? It's physiology. Le dio COVID. So you is in the nominative and now it turns into the objective, le. Indirect object. You are low in iron. Te. Again, te will be the indirect object from the nominative you to the indirect to the object, te. And then I like her a lot, saying like we saw above. Me gusta mucho. Me gusta mucho. All right. If you must identify that you're talking about a person, it will be okay to say ella me gusta mucho. Because me gusta mucho by itself, unless you have context, you're not really sure what is being said. Me gusta mucho. ¿Qué? ¿Quién? ¿Qué me gusta? ¿Pizza? ¿Me gusta comer pizza? ¿Me gusta la muchacha? ¿Me gusta? And so forth. Of course, when you say I like her a lot, in English, you're dealing more with affection and romance, and or romance. In Spanish, me gusta mucho by itself is not clear. So you may need to explain what are you talking about. ¿Eh? Me gusta mucho hacer ejercicios. Me gusta mucho montarme en un avión. If it's a lady, ella me gusta mucho. All right. Great. Now, many Spanish verbs have a reflexive. We have been talking about se so many times, the reflexive. The use of the reflexive pronoun se turn the action of the verb back on the verb subject. You can do it. He can get sick. So it's reflexive. It's something that it is done by the same subject. Like you can do it yourself. He can get sick himself. Nobody's making him sick. ¿Eh? So, puedes hacerlo. Él puede enfermarse. Now here you see the se clearly. Puedes hacerlo. You don't see it stated there. Puedes hacerlo. You can do it. And then that you is not there. You don't need it. Now, you could say, tú puedes hacerlo, but you don't need it. And in a good translation, you want to be as concise as possible. Now, he can get sick. Él puede enfermarse. And there's the se again, by himself. So if you remember the English self, Self implies reflexive because self is by himself or herself or itself. The nurse will give you a shot. Your mother will teach you how to brush your teeth. La enfermera le va a inyectar. So here is le. And then tu mamá te enseñará cómo cepillarte los dientes. Again, te. So it all refers to that pronoun. But again, it is an indirect object. In the reflexive, the nurse will give you a shot all by herself. She herself will give you a shot. Your mother will teach you how to brush your teeth. Your mother herself will teach you how to brush your teeth. So that's where the reflexive comes. Now, a reflexive construction is often used when an English-speaking person would use an adjective or a past participle preceded by an inflection of to, get, or to become. So let's look at that to get and to become. She got better. So here you see the se clearly stated. She got better. Se mejoró. Now, this is implying that, the context is talking about she. Otherwise, you have to state it. Ella se mejoró. Same thing here. He gets tired. If the he is not clearly stated, then you will have to write él se cansa. Now, it, that will be a neutral pronoun. Se empeoró. So we're not talking about a person, we're talking about a situation. Se empeoró la situación. So here's an example with she, with he, and with it. Any question? All right. Again, se is the most common pronoun in Spanish. So you want to master it because it's going to be all over the language. All right, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Here we go. Most Spanish nouns end in O, and then for masculine and for feminine end in A. However, now this is something I was trying to teach my niece, brilliant young lady, but she didn't know this. And you find that with lots of people that do not master the Spanish language. There are exceptions to the rule. So, for example, in many Spanish words that end in ma are masculine because they are derived from Greek. So look at the word problem in Spanish. The problem is he doesn't control costs. Well, problem comes from Greek. And in Greek, it ends in ma, but it is masculine. Therefore, in Spanish, problema is masculine. El problema es que él no controla los gastos. So you do not want to say la problema. No. Okay? We are loyal to the original Greek, which the word ending in ma is masculine. El electrocardiograma. ¿Sí? Ma. Electrocardiograma. The EKG. The electrocardiogram. Oh, here we go. Forgot that it was coming. El electrocardiograma detecta corta la electricidad del corazón. Now look at the word mano. Now this is Latin. Latin ending in no is feminine. So in Spanish, we say la mano, even though mano ends in o. In Latin is manus, and manus is feminine. Okay? So it keeps the original feminine gender when we go into Spanish. So we say what? My hands are cold, referring to hands, which is feminine. Tengo las manos frías. Las, no los manos. And then frías, no fríos. All right? So these are exceptions to the rule. In case you ever wonder why we say la mano and not el mano, why we say el problema and not la problema, there's the reason for it. Now, a source of confusion for beginning Spanish translators is the construction of agua. Agua is feminine, right? And requires feminine modifiers. However, el is used instead of la. We don't say la agua. And this is due to cacophony. In Spanish, we're very particular about the beauty of the language. And if you say la agua, you're extending that vowel and it doesn't sound right. La agua. So therefore, we use el agua to avoid that cacophony, that ah sound. The water is hot. And then it is not just limited to water. Look at the word soul, alma. And then asthma, as in a respiratory condition, is also el asma, el alma, el agua. El agua está caliente. El alma es eterna. El asma es una enfermedad respiratoria. Again, it only when you want to avoid the ah sound. Okay? When you turn it into plural, you don't have to deal with that problem. Las aguas calientes. There you turned it into feminine, even the article, las aguas calientes. Because there you're not saying as in la agua. See, the S at the end of las keeps you from saying So, las aguas calientes, feminine. But if it's singular, it's el agua caliente. Same with alma, asma, arma, el arma homicida. You don't say la arma homicida. Arpa, que es un instrumento musical. El arpa. All right? And we're looking at that definite article, but now also the rule applies to the indefinite article. Again, you're avoiding that sound. He had a sharp weapon. He bought a new harp. The bird has a broken wing. Él tenía un arma blanca. Él compró un arpa nueva. Un arpa nueva. El ave tiene un ala quebrada. Uno no dice una ala quebrada. ¿Eh? A menos que lo cambies a plural. It doesn't apply to plural. I just said that because you don't do the ah sound. Las armas blancas, all feminine. Las arpas nuevas, las alas quebradas. So be careful. Be careful. Keep that rule in mind when you are translating. Any question?
Doctor González,
Yes.
sí, tengo una pregunta. Em, en los ejemplos de él tenía un arma blanca, él compró un arpa nueva. am, ¿Por qué no se usa una? ¿Cuál es la diferencia entre un y una? ¿Él compró un arpa nueva o él compró una arpa nueva?
Um, un arma blanca, una arma blanca. Otra vez queremos evitar la cacofonía. No queremos decir una arma blanca, una arpa. No,
Oh, ok.
no, queremos evitar el ah sound.
Oh, ok, ok.
Sí,
Gracias.
cómo no, cómo no. Any other question? Es español, español. Me dicen, yo no hablo francés, pero me dicen que el francés es así también, bien, bien cuidadoso de preservar su idioma. Ellos tienen como una academia del idioma, igual que la Real Academia Española. Um, y son bien celosos de su idioma. Bueno, en español también, pero como somos tantos, a veces abusamos del pobre idioma. Franceses no son tantos comparados con Hispanoamérica. All right, all right. Great. Y hay tantos errores que usamos en Latinoamérica. Oiga, tantos. Great. And this is easy if you know Spanish. When comparing quantities, use de para comparar cantidades. This costs more than $100. Than. Esto cuesta más de $100. Así que esto se aplica a cantidades. You need to buy more than 2 gallons of gray paint. Tienes que comprar más de 2 galones de pintura. Otra vez cantidades. En otras situaciones usamos que cuando no hay cantidades. She's taller than her brother. Así que en español es que. My car is older than yours because this has nothing to do with quantities. So we say what? Ella es más alta que su hermano. Mi carro es más viejo que el tuyo. Así que estamos hablando de la palabra than en inglés. Cuando hay cantidades, la traducimos de. Cuando no hay cantidades, se traduce que. Y lo hacemos automáticamente si conocemos bien el español. Any question on this? All right, my friends. Here's again the reminder. 5 extra points toward your translation homework assignments. If you do the extra homework that I'm sending to you, what do you have to do? Huh? Tell me if the verb is a direct object or indirect object. That's all. That's all. I'm sending it to you. Let me give you a hint. All of them have two answers. They're not the same, but all of them have two verbs. So, like for sentence number 1, it will have two verbs. So tell me which verb is direct, which one is indirect. You may have two directs or two indirects, but there's always two. Okay? Except number 7 and number 9. Number 7 and number 9 is only one verb on each sentence. They're very short sentences. All right. So that's all, folks. I will send you not only the slides, I will send you the homework for next Saturday, and I will send you the extra credit quiz, which will be what? My goodness, this is a lot. 5 extra points for your home translation homework. Some of you can use them. All right. So let's say you only get 4 right. So you get 4 extra points. But if you get everything correct, you have potentially you can get up to 5 extra points. All right. You have a good night. God bless you. Keep on keeping on. Please be careful when you do the proofreading and editing of your next translation homework assignments. No more missing accents, okay? And read them carefully. Great. You have a good night.
Gracias,
See you
señor.
again. I'm sorry?
Gracias.
De nada. Get well soon, James.
Oh,
Get well
it hurts
soon.
less and less.
I'm keeping up with your Facebook reports. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.